The next thing I want to talk about, we absolutely have to talk about Ironheart. Dominique Thorne is fantastic as Riri Williams, and we have just scratched the tip of the iceberg on this character. Her introduction was great. The Ironheart suit was not impressive for me. I like it. Like it's very impressive that the character built that Ironheart suit, but the Ironheart suit on screen left something to be desired for me. But I thought the character was awesome. I have some comic notes to share. I have some notes from my interview with Nate Moore to share, but I want to go around and get everybody's thoughts on Riri Williams and what you took away from it, what you enjoyed about, what you want to see with it. Aaron, you're at the top of the screen.
Hope everybody who had that show down in their rankings feels a little weird, because you probably should feel a little weird right about now. I feel like we're in for a Miss Marvel type situation where it ends up being very, very good with not a whole lot of hype before this movie and then afterwards. She's definitely the bright spot of the movie. Her and Winston Duke. I think the thing of like, you ain't gonna leave me here, are you? Y'all stop having Black Panthers when they got me. And freaking you bald-headed demon are the two funniest parts of the movie for me, probably. Definitely. So she succeeds on that level. And I think they threaded the needle with the Stark stuff. She's obviously inspired by like the inventing part of it, but like the Tony part of it, she's like, that's not really my bag. So I'm excited to see more.
I'm not gonna lie. I would love to see some Stark stuff, but I'll touch on that. Jenna, go ahead.
I loved it. I got like goosebumps a minute or so onto her being on screen, because like I love Eve Ewing's Ironheart run. I love Ironheart comics. Like I thought that they did such a perfect job of capturing her energy. It is this thing of, I know we all like talk about fatigue of like, do we really need Disney Plus shows for everybody? But it was this thing of like 5 minutes into her being on screen, I'm like, yes, I will watch 6 hours of you just hanging out, dealing with magic, doing whatever in Chicago, because it was just so captivating to watch her. I liked the suits. I thought that they were a really good starting point to then eventually evolve to her getting her own style. I feel like if she came out of the gate and had her comic accurate, very Tony inspired suit, it would have just been a little too similar. And I love the stylistic choices that they made, because they just looked cool. They looked really weird. It looks like a Power Rangers action
That thing
figure,
looked like a Power Ranger.
but in like the
I
best
love
way. I
Power
don't
Rangers.
mind that at all. I think that that's an awesome choice. So I, across the board, she was so perfect.
Like I said on Wednesday, my number one takeaway from this movie is that I cannot wait for Ironheart. That's what this movie gave me the most, is that I am now hyped for that show. She was so fun, so funny. What a great character. Honestly, when it comes to the suits, I was barely clocking how I felt about it. All I know is that like, I think we all know from Tony that suits evolve, suits change. I barely even had a moment to have an opinion, because I was like, this girl's awesome. Do more things. So that's all I have to say about that.
Jamie hopes she's in it, Coven of Chaos.
Yes.
Ooh.
So a couple of things I wanted to talk about here. She mentions her stepfather used to work on cars with her, but ever since I think she outright says he's died,
Yeah.
or or at least hints at that. In the comics, she has lost many of her important family members in drive-by shootings in the early on Ironheart comics. I'm pretty sure that that's how her story starts. And so I imagine they might be going that route if but she's in Chicago in the comics, and
Yes.
she's in Boston in the MCU.
Because she goes to school in MIT in the comics, and then like just spends time in Chicago when she's not in school. She also like, since she has a suit that can fly, she kind of like goes back and forth between the two pretty frequently.
And MIT's becoming a major player in the MCU. Obviously, that's where MJ, Ned, and that kid that they're friends with wants to go to school. In Spider-Man No Way Home, and that's where Tony introduced the barf technology in Captain America Civil War, and also had like his guilty conscious moment where he learned about the damage done to an individual by Sokovia. But yeah, so Nate Moore, the producer of the movie and the president of production, or VP of production at Marvel Studios, told us in the interview you can watch on Phase Zero that she's not going to follow as directly in Tony Stark's footsteps, but obviously, has some inspiration and some nods. Like obviously her flying up to the sky and the oxygen thing reminded me of Iron Man 1 when he had the de-icing problem and he just flew too high and ended up falling out of the sky. And it also was reminiscent of Spider-Man literally running out of oxygen in Infinity War until he got the proper suit that could handle it, the Iron Spider suit. So there's clearly nods to comics. There's clearly nods to Iron Man. I personally love the moment where she goes into like the Hall of Armor in the comics and geeks out. She's like, that's the Silver Centurion. She meets Pepper Potts and she eventually meets AI Tony Stark. I don't really care if we get AI Tony Stark, but I do think it would be fun to see her geek out over Iron Man tech, Stark tech. But it seems that is instead going to be geeking out over Wakandan tech and the opportunities that Wakandan vibranium and resources, and technology is going to provide her. So that's cool. It also gave me just straight up Peter Parker, Tony Stark vibes from Captain America Civil War in a sense. Like, she references movies. That's what Spider-Man was doing. She's got a mentor who's not nearly as old as Tony Stark was, but is clearly a genius inventor, doing all those things. And they have a, almost like a older sibling, younger sibling relationship. So I guess by default that in a superhero film, you're going to be able to say, well, it's kind of reminiscent of that previous relationship. One thing I caught, she said she encrypts her stuff with a quantum computer. Maybe Kang is getting all that Ironheart tech. I don't know. She's storing her info in the quantum realm. What's going on? Maybe I'm just digging too much here. That's all I have to say about Ironheart. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about there?
I just loved her so much.
She was great. She was great.
I want to know how she gonna get that armor out the NSA or damage control.
Well, it's not illegal. The Sokovia Accords, as we learned in She-Hulk, are gone. So why did she burn all of her blueprints?
So people wouldn't find them, I guess. That's what I read from it. It's like,
you don't want the government to have that.
Thermite the drive, yeah.
I mean,
can't trust it.
I just that it felt like she was hiding something illegal, and I was like, she's not doing anything illegal. She's just an inventor. Why does she need to burn up all her?
Look, it happened to the last thing she invented. It caused a war between an underwater nation and Wakanda.
Like, they did also establish that she was like doing like projects for her classmates and stuff. So it's like even that might be like a thing of like that could hypothetically get her kicked out of MIT. And so I think she was maybe trying to cover up that too, on top of like whatever else she's inventing or designing in her free time. I don't know.
It's funny. She could have saved some time. They destroyed that warehouse. There nothing survived. Like, didn't it burn down? Didn't it get exploded?
I don't
think so.
Yeah, I mean, the Popo showed up, so it probably didn't go well.
Oh, she's got an Iron Man suit.
Yeah, that was honestly, I'm just gonna keep digging into Iron Man references. That almost reminded me of when Tony put his Iron Man suit on in the cave for the first time, and everybody came pointing guns at him, and he just sent one. Well, he used fire and a couple rockets, and she just sent one blast and was like, phew, straight up into the sky. So that was cool. Clearly, I mean, it's gonna be impossible not to make an Iron Man, reference and connection when you're talking about Ironheart. But yeah, so she was awesome.